Ekta, is my screen shared? Hello, very good afternoon, everyone. This is Rahul Bagadia, MD Manifold, and I am very pleased to be here this afternoon to be sharing a very relevant discussion for growing India e-mobility and EV scenario. So this webinar, this is 12th webinar in series under India Charging Ahead. And as the name suggests, the whole objective of us and is to really raise India and speed up its transition to this new low carbon initiative. This topic, we shall be focusing on electric two-wheelers battery swapping, rise in commercial fleet. In our other previous webinars, we have discussed around three-wheelers, we have discussed buses, car is yet to come. And in this particular webinar, we choose to talk about electric two-wheelers. And within that is specialized segmentation, which is a commercial fleet segmentation and application of battery swapping. So I have three very senior and very experienced panelists with me. I have Mr. Umesh Krishnappa from Cotton Greaves Ampere, who are one of the leaders in electric two-wheeler manufacturing. We have Dr. Prabjot Kaur from IIT Chennai, co-founder Esmito, who have been in very kind of leading position in kind of really developing battery swapping ecosystem and commercializing it across all different modes. And then I have Mr. Kedar Suman, co-founder and CTO e-Bike Go, one of very fast growing electric focused fleet segment with current focus on deliveries and goods commute using two-wheelers and looking to expand much more. So with this great panelists, I hope that we are together able to bring a right perspective around how important this fleet segment is for India uh, and how technologies are evolving and where battery swapping actually provides a great economic edge to this segment and what more still needs to be done to really take this segment to the next level. With that, very quickly, I think India is different than most other countries. We are almost 70% two-wheelers, and most of you would know, but we are the biggest two-wheeler market in the world, not just on the consumption side, but also on the production side. We have some 200 plus million two-wheelers on road. We are producing some 24 million plus vehicles on a yearly basis, of which 21 is internally consumed, 21 million, and 13% is exports. So I think this segment is very important for India and for its leadership and its transition to the electric mobility, not just for internal consumption purpose, but also the leadership India holds in exports. It's important that we kind of drive this segment faster with this transition to e-mobility. And between all these things, the commercial fleet segment is growing much faster. I will depend on my expert panelists, Umesh ji and Kedar, to share specific numbers how commercial segment in two-wheeler is really shaping up in India. With that, let's look into what are the different commercial segments which two-wheelers have taken up, and this all has come in a very short time. So there is the taxi model where there are drivers who are riding the passengers from point A to point B, and here we see very established companies like Ola, Uber, and many new startups, including Rapido, Baxi, Vogo, who have taken lead in this model. Then the other segment is the rental model, where there is no driver and user picks up a vehicle from point A and drop it to point B. Now there are different business models getting attempted here. This can be dock systems or dockless systems. And we have again quite big stories kind of shaping up in India, like Bounce, Vogo, Mobisi. So that's again a very fast growing segment. And third, again, delivery and goods focus, which is happening in last few years, and that is taking shape of well with our e-commerce giants, including Flipkart, Amazon, and now Zomato and Swiggy, kind of starting to use two-wheelers applications. So of this commercial applications between both passenger ride and e-commerce delivery, where electric two-wheeler makes more sense and how is the adoption, I think that is what we would really like to focus in this webinar. Just a very quick numbers, just to give a top idea like what could be the potential of electric in the fleet segment and within the electric battery swapping. So like a typical two-wheeler IC engine will give you a TCO cost of rupees 2.3 per kilometer, and a 60 kilometers uh, uh, travel distance, similar kind of a range electric two-wheeler with a battery size of 1.15 kWh pack, that will cost you in terms of TCO, total cost of ownership, lower than this. So I think this advantage itself is very clear and very established in case of electric two-wheeler taking over the IC vehicles. So I think this is kind of no-brainer now. I think the industry really needs to solve the right financing issues. The OEMs have to start producing stronger, more choice, better performance, and reliable models. But in terms of the TCO economics, it does exist and very sharp over ICs. Now, where does the battery swapping system comes in here and what advantage it offers? First is like the overall capex of the vehicle goes low, and the battery cost is being taken up by the other operator, including charging and service costs included. So our estimates and our first level of modeling suggests that battery swapping provides advantage over a fixed battery system. This advantage comes because of a better life cycle and better, I would say, sweating of the batteries over its period because of more systematic charging at the back end, including, so this costs are including of the depreciation and interest cost. So I think like my other panelists will also share their perspective, more coming from their on grounds experience and some of the challenges they see in realizing this advantage and this economics. We will hear more during our discussion. As I said, like the advantages of battery swap, lower upfront capex cost, reduce wait time for charging because you go to a station, you remove your old battery and swap with a already charged battery system there. So it should not take you anything more than 2 to 3 minutes, and then you are pretty out from the charging depot. And third, I think I already stated like you get a better battery life because in your swapping backend, you are able to charge the batteries in a controlled setting, in a controlled temperature and a controlled charging systems. So that helps you get a better life cycle out of your batteries. And all this thing converts into a lower TCO advantage. I think this could be of the order of 10 to 20%, and in higher speed vehicles with higher kilometer runnage. I think for the commercial fleet applications, we are talking of average 60 kilometers average run per day, but I think Kedar will share his thoughts where this number could even go as high as even 120 kilometers. So with that kind of increased kilometer, your TCO advantage go as high as even 30 to 40%. So I think like this one third to one fifth of the cost advantage that you are able to get from battery swapping, I think makes this alternative definitely very interesting for the commercial fleet operators. This webinar now, I think like with the three panelists, we will focus around the economics of the two-wheeler fleet segment and battery swap in particular. With Kedar, I am hoping to understand more around the operational and business model requirements coming from the fleet usage, pros and cons. With Umesh ji coming from the OEM's perspective, like what kind of trends he is seeing in the market for electric wheelers between individual use as well as commercial fleet segments, and what kind of requirements he is seeing is the market demanding specifically for commercial fleet applications, and his views and OEM's perspective of developing a model for battery swapping. So those kind of things, including standardization required at industry level for battery swapping. So those are some of the topics I am hoping Umesh will be able to share his insights, fairly long experience in that. And then about understanding how do we manage this entire ecosystem, how do we make our operations more efficient with all the data monitoring and analytics to really drive the higher ROI. So this is where I think Prabjot's and Esmito's work experience comes, and she will share her experience and thoughts. So with this, I think I request our first speaker, Kedar, who is CTO at eBike Go, to share his presentation. Kedar has masters in mechanical engineering from University of Cincinnati. He has 2 decades of experience in manufacturing and engineering in software industry based out of in USA. And in his stint and return back to India, he has earlier worked with Plug-in India and now co-founder and working at eBike Go. So Kedar, over to you, and please share your views.
Okay. Okay. Can I start talking now?
Yeah, Kedar, we can hear you and we can see your screen as well. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So first, thank you so much, Rahul, for this opportunity. Glad to be here, and I think with this very good complementing state of experts, I think this is going to be a great knowledge sharing session. So thank you everyone for attending as well. I'm going to give a perspective that is more from someone who can be a very ideal customer of a battery swapping solution. eByGo, just to introduce us, we are a fleet leasing company, fleet renting. We have, about 600 vehicles, which were supposed to be 1,000 by now, but we are just because of the coronavirus, we have hit some hiccup in someone who promised us they will give vehicles. We have a fleet from various OEMs. One fleet actually we are doing some testing with is Ampere, and so far very good results. So thank you, Umesh. I think you guys have a great product there. We are primarily focused into delivery ecosystem. So all the major last mile delivery companies or Big Basket, Flipkart. So these are the people. We just rent them a bunch of bikes. We also rent to what we call B2B2C. That means companies like Zomato. We rent it to their drivers. So Zomato is there in the picture. So we get some help from them and we get their cooperation. But our deal is with the driver. So most of the bikes are slow speed, some are high speed, and all are electric for sure. So, pardon me if my presentation is pretty plain and vanilla. I just tried to make it in the time I had. So I couldn't really incorporate a lot of good decorative features. So I just wanted to focus on providing a good content. That's us. And just market trends, I wanted to dig out some numbers. I just didn't have time, but I think these numbers you can find everywhere. The e-commerce is growing very rapidly. Food delivery market is growing very rapidly. The whole delivery ecosystem is growing very rapidly, with a lot of new players. We have done extensive research, and this was about 3 months back. We found almost 140 players who were one or the other way in this doing business in this delivery ecosystem. Out of 30 crore two-wheelers that were running registered on the vehicles, registered two-wheelers on Indian roads, about 10 to 11% are used for commercial purpose, and these 10% run a lot of kilometers every day. And Rahul, the statistics you mentioned is actually fairly good in ballpark as far as average is considered. The average running is about 50 to 70, kilometers per day for this vehicle. And this is why, we think these are the very good candidate to switch to electric. And, of course, under certain conditions, they also get heavy use. So they have, we have to do some customization. But this is a very strong potential for electric conversion of this segment. So I'm just going to just present a use case straight. A Zomato driver. The way we rent bike is we rent them per month, so we don't do per day. So if someone comes to us, then they sign a contract and then they just get a bike for a month, and they, typically Zomato drivers pay 1 month, like a month rent in advance. And whenever they, they think that okay, this is they want to change or something, even if they leave Zomato, we don't mind if they keep renting, as long as they keep paying rent on time. So if a Zomato driver has rented an electric bike from us, whether from us or not, this is how typically a Zomato driver's work day goes. If they have electric bike, then they charge it at their home. We have some removable batteries, and we have some that are not removable batteries. So removable batteries, of course, are preferred by the drivers, but they come with their own disadvantages, like the battery can be stolen. So from a Zomato audience, we don't see a lot of action in the morning. They still use it around, and we are okay with that. They use it to do their own stuff, run around, and around 11 a.m. ish, they start picking up orders if there are any. So 11 to 3, there is a lunch rush. So many of them in more like offices and corporate environments, and a few in residential areas. So a lot of that happens. And then there is again a little bit of a lull time around 3 to 5. And then there is a dinner rush that starts maybe 5, 6 p.m. it starts, and it goes late at night. And it's the 30 to 80 kilometers is what we see running. So 60 is a fairly good ballpark for average. And obviously running on weekends, the running is higher. Holidays, the running is higher. So this is how we have seen the riding pattern. Going to the next, how the driver is earning, and maybe I should have added a little bit more detail about spending as well. The driver earns about 20 to 50 rupees, sometimes higher if it's a big delivery from a very good restaurant. So that is their earning per delivery. And then Zomato has several incentives. If you work for 25 days a month, if you do 20 deliveries a day. Recently, Zomato also had was giving them some incentive for switching to electric, because obviously it helped them to do PR, and they also had some push from government. Considering, let us just say 40 rupees per delivery and 20 deliveries per day, so that is like 800-ish rupees is the earning of the driver per day. And if the driver is riding about 32 or let's say 60, 70 kilometers, as we saw, they are doing a lot of city riding, a lot of stop and go riding. So they are often spending somewhere between 1 to 2 liters of petrol, and that's a daily petrol consumption. Oftentimes they do like maintenance once in a month, so all those costs quickly add up. The bike types that are typically used, and we are renting some of those bike types, are low speed category. the legal specification is the 25 kilometers per hour the speed. We see 48 volt and 60 volt motors. And single charge range, most of the models we have are 70 to 90, but we have some that are, so a few models that are as high range battery we have as 140 kilometer. We do some customization for delivery, and like putting a box in the back, or some different type of tires, or few things like we customize some attachments for carrying, for some, if the mobile phone attachment, if it's not there. We also have a telematics device, so we can track the driver movements and get all the statistics. So this is a trip statistics. 85% of the trips are 5 kilometers or less, and we have oftentimes have geofencing, so the driver is in a particular area, and typically they stay in that area. The challenges, as before I started working with eBike Go, I did a lot of work with Plug-in India, and in one of the Plug-in India interviews, I have a good friend, Kanva Garg from Ernst & Young, and I took his interview. And one thing he mentioned that really stuck in my my head, stuck in my mind. What he said was, oftentimes, or more often than not, in big cities, charging is not an electricity problem. It is more of a real estate problem, and it is a real estate problem plus a regulation problem. That is what makes charging difficult. And also, to add one more comment made by someone who is very intelligent, in electricity is everywhere, but the charging is nowhere. So that is kind of a paradox. So finding time and place for charging is always a challenge. And peak loads, there is so much of uncertainty. So we know some general patterns, but obviously there are challenges. Sometimes you just get a lot of distance, a lot of trips, and then sometimes you cannot make the trip because you don't have enough battery. So we have had some cooperation from companies like Zomato, that if we are working with a last mile delivery company like Flipkart, then they have some way of managing. Oftentimes, when they rent a fleet, they also rent some extra batteries from us, so they can manage some peaks. But only like they can do that, but individual Zomato driver cannot do that. So they, also we have to provide chargers to the drivers. Every now and then it happens that the driver forgets to start charging at night, and then when they wake up in the morning, they want to do business, but they just don't have a bike ready. And there are power outages, and oftentimes the driver's residence, they may not even have power they're getting legally. So these are a few of the charging challenges that we typically face, when we rent out the bike to the drivers and let them manage charging. Swapping in fleet, we did evaluate Sun Mobility. We liked their solution. That time it seemed interesting, but that time, after a lot of discussion and debate, we thought that maybe we need to wait out a little bit and see how it develops. I roughly remember the numbers. This was, this was for a two-wheeler fleet, and I just saw today that they came up with some other like three-wheeler fleet option. Like there is a news about that. One of the challenges that we we think of, or we face, is that if we have to switch, for us to switch from owning our own batteries to leasing is possible. But then unless it is in all the cities that we are operating, and we are rapidly expanding cities. Just 3 months back we were in 4 cities, now we are in 8 cities. So unless we have a partner that can expand and provide the operations in the cities where we are and where we are expanding, it is difficult for us to chart a path where we can grow together. So and several other people have come to us saying that we can provide you a battery swapping solution, but so far we haven't really seen like a working model from anyone. We have seen some pictures and diagrams and things like that. So many times this is what I end up thinking, that it's just like a cell phone network, right? It is only usable if it is present in all areas you want it to use. So, if you want to start a new cell phone company tomorrow, you may have a good technology, but until you implement it at a large scale, the technology is of not much use on a small scale. So swapping is economically viable is or not is, I think the numbers are there, but can it quickly expand to a scale where it is, it can provide all the charging and battery charging needs. So we can just like eliminate one and entirely switch to another. That often I think is a challenge. Ideal charging partner for us. So when I think, okay, what would I really love? What kind of swapping? And I wrote charging here, but I meant swapping. So who would be an ideal swapping partner? First of all, the partner covers all the cities we want, all the areas of the city we want. And as I said, most of our trips are less than 5 kilometers. So, any when a driver is located at a particular place and the driver just, is within that area, the driver is going to spend most of the day. So if there is a station that, within that 5 kilometers distance, 5 kilometers diameter, then that would suffice. So that's why I just mentioned like maybe 2 to 4 kilometers would be an ideal swapping distance location. 40 and 60 volts are, I think, most common volts, motor battery voltages that we are running, and I think most of the two-wheelers in India, that's what they are running. 24/7 open, that would be a definitely necessity for us, because many times the Zomato deliveries can go on late night, and late night they have higher incentives to do those deliveries. You get paid more if you are delivering late night. So there are enough drivers who will want to deliver late night. And ideally, automated would be best, because anytime you are depending on someone else to actually do the job, you cannot rely on them performing every step in the process correctly. So if they don't fit the battery correctly, and if they drop, if they damage, things like that may happen. And this is automated battery removal is just something that it's more like a desirable feature. And the reason I mention this, because we do see battery theft as an issue. So, that is one of the biggest challenge often in, when we are making a decision, or, like when we are justifying any decision. We make battery removable so that charging becomes easy, but then at the same time, we're increasing the risk that the battery is stolen. So if there was a way where, I take the two-wheeler and I park it, or, I park it on a certain platform, and then it's like just some robotic hand comes and does the entire process, and, using specialized nuts and bolts that are not easily removed. The battery cannot be easily removed by a person, but the whole robotic setup quickly removes the old battery, puts a new battery. That would be ideal in my mind, because that would also reduce, not entirely eliminate, the risk of a person removing the battery and stealing it somewhere. So in and out around 3 minutes. This is something, that is, we have done some basic surveys, and we have asked the drivers if at all there was what is the least amount of time you're okay, spending charging. And pretty much like 3 minutes ish, if someone said, oh, this is great. We don't know if, if the solution would be make or break. I mean, 5 minutes or something would be possible, but I think 3 minutes seems like a reasonable target to give. And because when someone is doing their business on the, using the two-wheeler, so if you are riding the two-wheeler for personal use, worst case scenario, you don't get battery, charge battery at the location, you go home, you take an auto, you do something. But if you don't get, battery charging when you're doing your business on bike, then that means you're losing business. So we would need a very high degree of reliability, that, if I were to make a reservation that every day I will, I will charge, I will swap one battery at this place somewhere in, in 3 to 5 p.m., then one battery should be available to me at that place. That would be a very, reliability when you're using the vehicle for business is a very big issue. So little or no deposit, then, and the reason I mention is that, some battery swapping partners we discussed, they wanted deposit, and then we being an asset heavy company, we own our bikes, and, we do maintenance. And so one of the huge advantage we see in going asset light, or, going for battery swapping, is that, if we are not spending on battery, then that means we can, like, in, let's say, 1 crore rupees, if we are buying scooter plus battery, then if we don't have to buy batteries, then we can buy a lot more scooters in the same amount of money. So, but if we have to pay deposit, then that option, or that, advantage is taken away. So if at all we have to pay like almost the deposit worth of a battery amount, then why would we keep our money stuck there? We ourselves would buy that battery and, manage it on our own. We are okay having sharing our telematics data if that helps, or, put someone else put their own telematics on the battery. We are okay with that. If data is of any value to you. So charging option at a swapping station, worst case scenario, there is, it's not breaking, or, even our battery, if I'm home, then I can charge at home. Having that option for flexibility, and again, because the vehicle which is being used for business really needs to be, less constrained as possible. So that would be a nice option to have. As far as, we as a battery, not battery, sorry, the two-wheeler fleet leasing company are considered, we absolutely are interested, and we, off and on, that has always been in our discussion. It has always been on our radar. So that's why when Rahul and Ekta came to me with this battery swapping, I immediately said, I'm interested in participating in this webinar. So I think the economics is fairly well there. I think several assumptions that Rahul mentioned are fairly close, and so that is, I think, less of a consideration right now. The scale of operation and ability to match our scale, that is often one problem. And as I said, asset heavy businesses like us can be great partners, because that will really help us in deploying more assets on ground, increasing our revenue, and we can provide like a big quantum of business consistently to battery swapping players, which can help them to get up and going. So that's the end of my presentation, and I hope I have given a good overview of, from a consumer's point of view, that we would like to be a customer or consumer of such a battery swapping solution, and this is what we need. So
Sure. So I think Kedar, you really covered it very well. Thank you
thank
for
you.
all the great insights that you shared.
Mhm.
Different use cases. What are some of the challenges seen by your drivers, and
Mhm.
how those things pose as a strong constraint or requirement that you would want to really build a strengthened system. So I think that is wonderful. Before asking Umesh from Cotton Greaves Ampere to share his views, Kedar, you have any kind? So most of your thing was kind of a requirement from the charging and charging service provider ecosystem,
Correct.
including battery. Anything that you have a specific requirement that you have observed from the vehicles side, from your vehicle sourcing side, because you're also bringing vehicles outside the country. So that I think can become a good leeway into Umesh talking about their Make in India contribution and plans ahead.
No, certainly. Actually, from the vehicle sourcing side, we right now we just have one of our suppliers is getting most of the components from China, but several of our, we have several other partners, some that are already existing and some we are evaluating, are doing it in India. And oftentimes, because we are buying bikes in bulk, we have a certain requirements which we communicate to the OEM. And because we are buying in bulk, they are often willing to work with us and make the necessary customizations in the bike. So, from the vehicle or the OEM side, as I said, like the, battery location would be one issue that, that has to be, if at all we are talking about automated, then, the battery has to be located at a place where, the machine can easily reach, or then it has to be, uh, like removable by manually removable. Also, the type of cells and the weight of the battery, that also becomes an issue when you're planning to remove it every day, like two, 3 times. So lighter batteries, some cell chemistries are better than other, as in having far more power density. So we typically would go for that. So these are few things I can think of. Battery form factors that most of them are like square batteries. So I think once you have a system designed correctly, that form factor should matter less. Battery standardization, that is something that I don't know who and how can make it happen. If at all it
Kedar, your voice, Kedar, we cannot hear you.
in any charger that charges that battery and charge. So if I have like double A battery in ampere scooter that I can take, and go to any station, that any swapping station that can charge my double A, something like that would be great.
Sure. I think this is good, Kedar. Thank you very much. Now I request our other expert, Mr. Ramesh Krishnappa, CTO at Compton Reeves Ampere, to share some of his experience. He has actually come from much deeper and much long standing in automotive background, electrics, much before he has been doing. The REVA is what something that he was kind of the key engineer. So really looking from Sir to share his viewpoints and his perspective on this growing need for commercial electric two-wheeler in India. Umesh ji, please.
Thank you very much, Rahul. And Kedar, a very nice presentation. Thank you very much, Prabjot, for working tirelessly with us for developing a solution for another commercial, budding, potential commercial customer for the two-wheeler. And thank you, Ekta, for organizing a very wonderful webinar. Just to give a brief background, am I audible clearly?
Yes, Umesh ji, please go ahead. Very clear.
Yeah, so I think just to give a brief background, Greaves Cotton Limited have been engaged in uh, diesel engine supplies to most of the OEMs across the country. 80% market was shared in the diesel engine by Greaves Cotton Limited. So sometime during 2018, because of the BS6 and the threat to the technology of diesel, Greaves Cotton Limited decided that we should go into the electric mobility business also, and that's how the electric mobility business was floated in middle of 2018, and I joined around the same time. I, as Rahul was telling, I started this along with Chetan. I came from the Mahindra side in 2009 when we took over Reva, and we started this Mahindra E2O car program. I was executive vice president there, head of the car program, and I think that was a challenging time, initial times, and we were developing a completely localized vehicle. There were no collaborations. There was, other than the battery, almost all the key battery and the controller, all the parts were localized, developed, designed, and developed inside Mahindra Reva Electric at that time. And we had our own share of failures. I think failures teaches you a lot in electric mobility. And then I created an ecosystem which was a platinum rated plant, one of its own kind in automotive industry, where the plant itself was platinum rated as per IGBC, almost 30% of the energy coming from the solar. And then I had a break from the electric vehicle industry, and then I came back in Greaves Cotton Limited, and we started developing this electric drivetrain for three-wheelers. And we have very sophisticated three-wheeler electric drivetrains already developed, and there have been a lot of solutions we have worked around that, both in the charging infrastructure, fast charging, and also to provide a lot of assist to the drivers and the users of the vehicle. Towards the end of 2018, when we acquired Ampere Scooters Private Limited, which was basically making low-speed scooters and converting them from the kits which were brought from China, and they were all vehicles below 25 kmph. In the year 2019, I think we changed that paradigm, and we started developing the high-speed scooters, and we'll be happy to know that we have almost 4 variants which are all FAME certified and CMVR certified in the high speed. One is the Zeal, which is a high speed vehicle at around 55 to 60 kilometers per hour. It has an ARAI range of 107 kilometers, and the vehicle was quite tested for reliability of the whole system. So primarily it was for B2C market, but we had started working with quite a number of B2B players at that time, whether it is Big Basket, Bounce, Vogo, uh, and many others. And it was towards May 2019 that we introduced the Zeal in the B2C market, and around June or July, we started supplying to Bounce also. And today, I'm proud to say that we have around 1,200 vehicles, electric vehicles flying in Bangalore. I think most of the electric vehicles of Bounce are Ampere vehicles. And so far, the feedback has been good. There have been couple of areas where I think there is improvement required in terms of meeting the customer requirements. But I think if the fleet operators and the OEM work together and analyze the use cases properly, I think it will give rise to a reliable product at the end. Recently, we have announced a partnership with Big Basket also, and I think we are the only company. I cannot be sure, but I think we are amongst the first or among the initial few ones who have a certified cargo vehicle. Uh, there are many vehicles with Domino's, etc., IC engine vehicles which are flying with cargo with a white number plate. But I think many don't know that there is a CMVR certificate with a cargo which is available, which one has to certify to be used legally on the roads. The payload of there are certain restrictions as far as the AIS certification is, the AIS standards are concerned in terms of the cargo size, which is primarily around 500 millimeter, 500 mm, and 500 mm in all directions. There's a payload restriction of 30 kg, which can be put along with the box and this thing, because I think when the cargo is put, what is also important is dynamic stability of the two-wheeler and the safety of the driver. So we are certified for that as well. We have a legitimate certificate. We have a uh, DHI FAME 2 approval on that, and we have recently also certified for what we call as the high-speed Magnus vehicle, which is much more like a Honda Activa structure and which can take higher payloads and can take higher road vibrations, etc. On the overall market, I think we are among the top three. We are selling around 2,500 vehicles per month. In addition to that, we have now the fleet operators, the ride sharing people, the cargo people like Big Basket, the food delivery people like the Domino's and Pizza Hut kind of people who are coming in, and whom we are already working with, and we are expanding. When we started working on uh, the commercial market, we were quite clear that these will have load cases and cases of abuse where we have to see that our vehicle is structurally much more robust. Like, for example, if we have a food delivery system where the number of deliveries is a prime factor for the user, uh, there are times when you can see the drivers going on the footpath and they just at high speed they climb the footpath. The rim undergoes a lot of stress at that point of time, transferred to the chassis, and there are possibilities that it may either deform or may crack. So we were quite aware of those things, and we made proof of concept prototypes where we increased the rim size. We made the other structures in a manner that it can take these kind of abusers and still survive. At the same time, if you see some of these users, the vehicle is mostly in the sun and it undergoes a lot of abuse and lot of degradation because of ultraviolet radiation. So if the and then you can see that many of the vehicles, the left side color has faded and the right side color is brighter. So there is degradation of all sorts. The vehicle which is only 1 year old, whether it's an IC engine vehicle or an electric vehicle, looks actually 5 or 6 year old. So we had some special coatings and UV resistant mechanisms to take care of these things. At the same time, also see that the whole electrical safety is taken care. As I said, that we have already supplied around 1,000 vehicles to Bounce, and Bounce and Ampere kind of co-created the solutions together. The Bounce also was not initially aware of the requirements exactly what will happen with the electric vehicle on the road. I think that is still evolving and it will take around another 6 to 8 months for everyone to understand that what is exactly the requirement and how to take care of that. So when we developed this, we started realizing that in case of ride sharing kind of products where the association of the customer with that vehicle is only for 10 to 15 kilometers and the customer is not going to use the vehicle again. So customers have different kind of expectations on these kind of vehicles. Of course, the speed, acceleration, performance, etc. are important, but there are very many potential areas, as Kedar was telling, that the vehicles are misused. And I don't know, many cases we have seen where the customers are destroying the whole thing and trying to take out the batteries. And I think there was a case where one college going student was found to have taken out around 10 to 15 batteries and have sold them in OLX or something. So the requirement started coming, how do we protect it? So of course we did a lot of modification in the electrical architecture. We have incorporated not only a mechanical lock, but there have been a lot of electronic locks which are only accessible to the administration guy in the ride sharing company. At the same time, we found that while we do that, the people who misuse are smarter than us, and they find out ways how to really break that also, and uh, still do damage to the vehicle. So there have been additional protection circuits. There have been IoT devices which are kept awake for a week's period of time. Uh, and if there is any accessibility to the battery, we have seen that these are all covered well and kind of taken care. So what we have done is done with a lot of modifications along with our customer, and kind of try to make it robust. And I think we have gone into some success, and we are now again going with the market with another 1,000 vehicles, and we will see that all those issues are also taken care from the customer side. Kedar was talking about the reliability. I think it is very important that the overall system reliability of the vehicle is very, very good. So I think we get obsessed with batteries, but I think batteries are not the only thing which fail. And in these kind of conditions where people sometimes are pressing brakes and putting the accelerator together, and that too in a very abusive condition, the temperature rises in the motors, the wiring harnesses, etc., go to abnormal levels. And what we have seen, if we require a 4 square millimeters cross section for this thing, for these kind of application where the temperature rises are pretty high, we require to go for higher cross sections in order to have the whole system reliability for a design life of 8 years or 60 to 70,000 kilometers robust. We had a very big reliability test program where we ran our vehicles to almost 80 to 85,000 kilometers. We mapped the vehicles for infant mortality failures across various types of road conditions, because in Indian condition, if you go into a pothole, almost a 3G load is transferred to the chassis. Uh, Combined with that, a cornering load of 1G or a 0.6G load of a braking load happening together, it's quite a lot for an electric vehicle. And I think the overall reliability is basically has to be divided into subsystem reliabilities like a structural reliability, or so there are three components what we have taken. We have taken three groups of reliability. One, we have taken motor and transmission. Second, we have taken the reliability of the electronic system. And third, the reliability of the battery and the BMS and things like that. And each one should have a minimum reliability of 90% as a subsystem. So when you go to component level, it is almost 99%. So the demands are huge, the abuse is very high, but I think together we are evolving solutions where we uh, are making the vehicle robust to see that they are useful in the commercial sector. Now, I think I got a ring, so I will just go on the swapping thing, our experience on battery swap. So I think I was, I think myself, Prabhjot, and we were all talking some time back in some seminar that what is actually a swapping system. A swapping system is one what Sun Mobility has developed or some others are trying to develop, or a swapping system is one where you are able to swap batteries, take it out, take it to your home, and then easily charge it and put back in around 30 seconds of time. So our batteries are swappable to that extent that we can remove the batteries in 30 seconds. The batteries are around 10 to 12 kg, and now we are going for a 9 kg battery. They are easily removable, they can be taken, they can be charged easily and brought back. For fleet solutions, and especially for KEDA, for big basket, we developed what is known as an array charging system. So for an array charging system, we developed a fast charger where we said that we can charge up to 15 amps. We could go up to 1C, but
Umesh, your voice is not audible.
in charging an array of scooters with different voltages, different connections, etc. Then Big Basket said that instead of vehicle charging, can we charge different batteries? Because that is what the model is, and we could do that. So there are solutions which probably would emerge on array charging and things like that, which would make the whole swapping as an over that we have 3G and other kind of loads. Any
Hello, Umesh.
misalignment, yeah.
Umesh, I think your last few minutes got faded away when you started speaking about array charging. And I think because it is important to the topic, could you kindly repeat, please?
So I was not audible or what at that time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was not audible at that time. So I think
So
maybe
yeah,
some
I think
network
one of
glitch.
the so I will come back on the array charging. So we developed a solution known as array charging system where we said that vehicles can be of different voltages, vehicles can be of different connectors, and if all those vehicles come to a charging station, they should be able to charge because with some of these companies we are selling both low speed, high speed, and all kinds of variants. And so this array charger helped the around 6 vehicles can be charged at one time with 0.5C or 0.6C kind of charging. Can go up to 1C also if the battery allows that. And the fleet or the commercial partner said that instead of charging the vehicles, we would like to charge different type of batteries. So we did a successful project and pilot and this thing with Big Basket and Meslio. And those kind of solutions are possible and they will also evolve as an alternative to battery swapping. So I was telling that fast charging and many batteries or vehicles charging at one point of time will be a solution which will be emerging in future. So is that clear? So I can come to our experience on the swapping for 5 minutes and then I will end.
Sure, Umesh.
So on the battery swap, I think the practical problems. One is the kind of loads which are coming on the vehicle. In Indian road conditions, it's an extremely high kind of load which is coming consistently if the battery has a dock. Any movement, micro movement also will rise heat, will have temperature rise inside that, and what happens is there is a great amount of oxidation which starts over a period of time, and the connections doesn't remain as effective as they are. We did a lot of endurance testing. I would not name the company, but somebody named in that, and we made one such kind of vehicle. We tested, and we had issues both in the electrical connectivity loss as early as 8,000 to 10,000 cycles, and then finally leading to breakage and pin breakouts, etc. So I think there is a very, very serious issue as far as the vehicles with that battery dock and a connector at the bottom, however robust it is to survive. There is no standard protocol which has been issued by the government, because this would require a proper standard like any fixed battery solution. A docking connector and its overall integration with the vehicle is very, very important. Somebody gives us a battery with a connector at the bottom, we do that. Final liability is with the OEM, because we are the ones who type up to the vehicle, and whatever one may say, but the final liability of the safety lies with the OEM. So we are talking to at various forums to say that there has to be a standard protocol for these kind of connectors and swap stations. What is our suggestion is that while at the vehicle side, you can still have a IP67 connector from the top, which is flexible, which will take flexibility of the road vibration. You can have a docking station. You in the vehicle, the bottom connector, which is having a dock connector, can be covered, is not used. You remove the battery, and in the docking station, which is stationary, you can then plug in. So under static condition, the docking connectors would work more efficiently than in a mobile application. And from our limited experience, we found that it is quite a challenge. The second aspect is, as far as the scooter is concerned, two-wheeler is concerned, there's a limited space of around 15 to 20 liters available. In that, you have to accommodate a docking box, and then you have to put the battery. That means the battery capacity itself is restricted. I think what maximum we could use was a 1.5 kilowatt hour battery. If we are using a 1.5 kilowatt hour battery, you are not going to pass the eligibility criteria of 80-kilometer range as required by the FAME 2 requirements. And there is no way you can get subsidy on such vehicles. So there is a attempt being made now that to ask the government and DHI to reconsider the eligibility criteria from 80 kilometer to less than 60 kilometer. Still, it has not happened. But if it is a high-speed scooter, and if you are an aspirant for the FAME 2 subsidy of around 18 to 20,000 rupees, as we are getting now, there's no way with this limited battery we can meet the eligibility criteria. So that's a challenge. How to overcome that, or not at all consider the subsidy is another option. So I think different models are emerging, but definitely people are much more aware today, much more concerned about the end user safety and the end user application requirements. And there's a lot of cross learning which is happening, and I think this is one of such forums. So I think definitely the future is bright. There's no way in two wheelers that we are going back on EVs I think EVs are going to stay, and they are affordable now in at par with IC engine vehicles, and the future is great in two-wheelers, and so much usefulness in the commercial sector, which we are seeing. We ourselves have 5 or 6 serious customers who are taking from us. There are vehicles in the field now. We are learning from that, and I think next 6 months to 1 year is quite exciting. I think new things are going to emerge in this field. So, thank you very much for this opportunity, Rahul and team.
Thank you very much, Umesh. I think very valuable inputs. I think for more question and answers, we don't have time. I think we need to allow Prabjot to share his very important points. One last point, very quick, Umesh, like with the current technology and the adoption and economics and reliability and supplies, do you think that this segment of electric two-wheeler commercial fleet is kind of ready, strong enough that in next, let's say less than 3 years, there is a very strong case for 100% of the use actually becoming electric. So are you forcing it, or you think it will happen faster, or if you think it will take much later time for the other requirements and things to build into the product?
So I think it will happen faster in 2 years' time. What I see
Okay.
in Bangalore and other areas, I think every new fleet is now electric. So our numbers are also going up. So I can see it every day.
That I
So
think is a big encouraging message coming from you, a stalwart, I would say, Umesh, that you see that yes, this will happen and much faster in 2 years' time. So I think that itself is a big message for the industry and lot of things for all of us to really do and look forward. Thank you very much, Umesh.
sure.
So with this, I request my very good friend Prabjot. Prabjot is co-founder CEO at Esmito, a startup that incubated at IIT Chennai. She also is advisor at CB, Center for Battery Excellence and Electric Vehicles. So extremely hands-on with all the developments around battery charging ecosystem, standards, battery swapping, developing testing ecosystem, and making three-wheeler fleet and two-wheeler fleet commercials. So Prabjot, over to you.
Before that, Rahul, I think I will have to excuse myself now. I have a call coming up. So,
Sure, I would understand,
Prabjot,
Umeshji,
all
but
the
thank
best, and
you.
I will be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you, Kedar. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Rahul. And a
Yes,
very good
Prabjot.
evening to everyone there on the webinar. So the other panelists, Mr. Ramesh and Mr. Kedar, have already set the stage right and the use case for swapping. And I think Rahul, you had explained at the beginning very well the why do we need swapping and where we can go, and especially from commercial vehicles point of view, where TCO and the ROI makes, I mean, have to be very differently thought as compared to when we talk about the passenger vehicles. So I'll be talking on some of the work that we had been doing around swapping to see that things happen in a way where all the whole of the architectural point of view for the swapping, where we talk about standardization, we talk about other issues, how the swapping should be done, and the business aspects of it, if we can try to solve from the technology point of view. So like Rahul, you had mentioned, so Rahul, you had mentioned that our vehicles, almost 80% of our vehicles mixes two-wheelers. This also emerging from the affordability that is quite low for our country, and our average speeds coming out to be very low as compared to the other countries where EVs have happened already. And if we talk about this swapping, how this can address a number of things, then all of us have been talking about the cost of electric vehicles. So whatever the cost of electric vehicles that we consider, if we take out the batteries out of the electric vehicle, we can reduce the cost price to about 60% of the overall price of the vehicle. So addressing kind of the affordability challenge that we have for electric vehicles. And if we see for another advantage that comes in here, that Mr. Ramesh was just talking about, is the temperature, not only from the fading and the other side points of view, but if we see for the impact on the battery life, on an average, we have seen that the battery life can be enhanced by 40% if we can control the operational environment of the batteries. So if we can charge the batteries appropriately, we can enhance the life of the battery. Now, if we do it in the vehicles where passengers are owning the batteries and these are parked in the sun or charged outside, this is kind of impossible to do that as at this point in time, given the technologies that we have. But when we talk about the swapping technologies that we have, there are available. The possibility of charging the batteries in a conditioned environment exists, and we have seen that the battery enhancement is possible. So without spending much time on the advantages of it, we'll talk about the challenges, because I think that is where our panelists and our audience would be wanting to know more about what is doable. So the very first thing, the very important challenge that we talk about in battery swapping is the standardization. That revolves around what should be the size of the battery, what should be the connector, and if I am the user of the vehicle where I want to figure out where should I go for the swapping the battery, then do I go to one operator and he tells me that no, this is not registered with me and I cannot service your vehicle, you go to second operator. I keep on hopping like that till I know that where I have to go. And what do we do in that kind of a scenario where I should be like we use the petrol and the diesel, we go to any petrol station to fill the petrol and the diesel. Can we have something like this where I do not have to worry about which is my operator, where I'm registered to, or who'll be serving or keeping the batteries that are compatible to my scooter or my vehicle? Can we have something which is very standardized in nature? And then the same very thing brings to the second challenge, that is the interoperability, not only among the vehicle and the battery, but also between the operators. So something like we talk about Jio, Airtel. I usually give this example of telecommunication, where you have Jio SIM and I have an Airtel SIM, and if we are roaming around, we do not have a coverage in one station, we want to go to the second operator, we pay some delta amount and we are there. The third thing is the ownership of the battery. So if we talk about complete swap operations, complete swapping as the solution, where the batteries are not owned by the users, then who are the people who are going to own the batteries, and how would they ensure that my asset is protected? How would I also ensure that whatever I'm issuing it to the user, this has some guaranteed performance and some guaranteed predicted life of the battery? So if I'm giving the battery to a user saying that this would last for 100 kilometers, can I guarantee that? And would one user get 100 kilometers versus second get 20 kilometers with respect to, I mean, as the batteries range? So all these things are big issues while we talk about batteries on lease or batteries on swap, along with the safety of the asset. So when we talk about safety of the asset, Mr. Kedar had mentioned that he's actually worried about the batteries can be stolen, the batteries can be taken out, or they could be used for any other application apart from the electric vehicle. So there are a number of solutions that exist around all these challenges. I'll speak about some of the options that we have thought on. and the way the technology can address these challenges. So the very first thing on a conceptual level is something that we call as log smart batteries. Some batteries that have intelligence into it, such that we can make them theft free. Can we do something with the batteries that can be logged with the vehicle? Can we do something technologically to log these batteries with that particular vehicle, and at the same time log that battery with a particular charger? So such that there is a handshake between the battery and the charger, handshake between the battery and the vehicle, and we ensure that this battery comes back to the operator for the exchange or for the swap. And this we do in a very standardized way, such that the scalability, modularity, and all the things that we talk about for an operation in the field are taken care of. So this is something that we call as log smart batteries, which get logged. I'm not talking about physical log. So physical log is something that is kind of an innovation that any OEM, any operator can have, considering what nuts, bolts, etc. one has to put in. But I'm talking about the intelligence and technology that can play an important role while we talk about the thefts on the assets and making it more intelligent to take care of these aspects, that even if you take it out, even if you break the nuts and bolts and all the mechanical fittings, after that also the battery refuses to charge, saying that no, I'm supposed to be discharged in this particular vehicle, so I'll refuse to be discharged in that vehicle, or refuse to be charged with that any other charger, which I'm not supposed to do that. Now, when it comes to standardization, considering this log smart battery, we knew that there are a number of stakeholders around. So if we take for the swapping, you see that there are operators, there are battery OEMs, there are vehicle OEMs, there are charger people. So all of them have to be working together to adopt this whole standardization effort, which goes into that whole architecture. And even if we do not have one piece here, the whole end-to-end architecture is not going to function in the field. So that's where, to begin with, we formulated a forum, and there were luckily about 35 stakeholders, including all these OEMs, consultants, fleet operations, and Rahul, you had also been involved in that from the very beginning. And with that, we kind of came up with a swapping architecture and defined the communication protocol for all the subsystems in a way that what all different subsystems need to talk to each other. So if we see here for all the audience, if you see for the point number 1, that is where we see that we as the EV driver are using our vehicle, and as soon as we see that our batteries are going out of charge, we look out for a swapping outlet, we go there and exchange our batteries. At that point in time, the swapping outlet or the operator's person issues that charged batteries and charge us only for the energy that we would have consumed. And this intelligence and how this communication has to happen for the field, it has to be very, very seamless. But to make it interoperable, to make it standardized, all these have to be implemented in a very standardized way, that what is the handshake, what is the communication, what is the language that both of them are talking. That is the new battery, the old battery, the handheld device, the vehicle. So the whole of it has to be kind of talking a common language that be defined. And then once you collect these batteries at the swapping outlet, these batteries have to be sent to the chargers, which we call as bulk chargers, or one may call them as array chargers or rack chargers. We send it to them where all these batteries are put onto the bulk charger for charging them simultaneously. And while we do that, we are also able to capture the whole lot of data that the battery was collecting while the battery was being driven, or now that the batteries are being charged. So this whole information keeps collecting, and it keeps on going to the cloud, where You have the history of the battery right from the cycle 1 to whatever life we have spent for the batteries. So there are models out for which the whole of the architecture on the swapping would emerge. So if one has to ask me, I could only think about two of the architectures right now. One is the architecture where the swapping station and the charging station coexist. So it's a one common outlet where we have the charger as well as the swapping happening. And the same place we collect the battery, we dispense the battery. So the batteries are there. So the number of batteries to a particular swapping outlets are given and the charging capabilities is also given. But there could also be a model where someone could come up with a solution that, hey, I don't want to put in the chargers at my swapping outlet. I want that I carry the charged batteries from my godown where I have maybe hundreds of chargers kept there, charge my batteries, and in the morning or whatever time as per the schedule, we go to different swapping outlets, and as per the demand per day or whatever duration we decide, as per that we dispense those many number of batteries to those stations and carry out our operations. So considering all these use cases, different use cases, and the communications that we need to have between all these different subsystems, we define this protocol which we named as LSVBCC protocol, standing for Locked Smart Vehicle to Battery, Battery to Charger, and Charger to Cloud Communication. So here, this document has been made open. It's available for everyone to get that implemented onto their subsystems. If anyone is wanting to adopt that, they can implement their part of the piece, and we are ready to go for a good standard. And this was worked around about 2 years back, where all different OEMs and different people had implemented that, and we had been kind of seeing that all of it kind of becomes interoperable and started to test all these integration. So if we talk about what our company does on S-meters and what is the solution that we have, we are very much following this LSVBCC protocol and seeing that the batteries could come to this bulk chargers. So we provide these bulk chargers as well, which come with both the air conditioned option and non-air conditioned options, and we get hold of the information of this out of this battery and pass it on to the cloud to do a lot of analytics onto the batteries. And the whole of the solution actually is kind of a third party solution, as in, I mean, we offer it to the third party, majorly for B2B applications, where we have this platform. We call it as MPEO platform. That is a management platform for energy operators, or you say fleet operators or logistics operators, where this one common platform connects to the drivers for driver management, for swapping, managing the swapping outlets. We manage the bulk chargers, logistics management, and customers management. And the whole of this, I mean, if we look at this, this shows that it is quite comprehensive and quite complicated a system, but this is made modular in nature. And considering that what is the LSVBCC standard made, we can pick and choose whatever module one wants to take and plug it into their platform or their system that they are already running, or how to make each of the subsystem compatible to this whole solution or to this whole swapping architecture or the protocol that we have defined. And just to mention here, for the swapping, if we talk about currently, we would see that there are a number of players that are existing, a couple of them in India, a couple of them outside, but all of them are working on very proprietary solution. In India, if we talk about the numbers, the scale, and the complexities that we have in the field and in the operations, if we do not have the standards in place, it is going to be very, very chaotic. And that is where we try to make it open for everyone so that people can adopt it. And like us, there could be so many number of people that can actually evolve their businesses around it. and it will benefit everyone. So this is an ecosystem where we see that India is starting very, very late on electric vehicles. We are about a decade and a half back when it comes to R&D, and probably a decade back when it comes to commercialization. So in absence of which, probably all of us who are interested to take part in the electric mobility and wanting to see electric mobility or wanting to make business out of it, all of us probably need to work together to see that what all parts we can contribute and where we can contribute and play on our, I would say, our strengths to make the whole ecosystem work. So what we additionally do is, this is kind of an AI-based predictive diagnostics that we perform largely on batteries, where we can figure out what is the residual life of the battery, so that an operator can promise their customers that what is it that I'm going to give you as a mileage or a range. And then can we figure out that if there is a safety threat, there are alerts that one could generate. And all around the globe, we have been hearing that there are so many accidents that we could encounter, and given the temperatures in which our country operates, this all the way becomes even more important that we address this issue before we start actually start saying that no, EVs is not for India. So before we start saying that, we need to do something about it and say that, yeah, we can actually figure it out that there are some threats. And at that very time, we should not issue that particular battery to the user. And if critically, we can also find on the way, which is a very challenging task, while the driver is driving, if we can monitor that the battery is not in the right shape, and it can, in the worst scenario, if we have to say that the battery could even burst, at that time, can we stop the vehicle? Can we tell through our remote communication to the battery and tell the battery to stop discharge at that very movement, or give driver maybe a few seconds time to take the vehicle on her side and probably arrange for something else as a service. So these are few things that are thought around on this swapping, and I would say that the area is very, very much evolving. And that is where the analytics has to play a very, very important role, because once someone picks it up for their business, there is very, very, I mean, there's probably no chance that one would want to take for its business to fail. So that's where we have to learn from whatever is happening in the field. And that's where we do effective asset utilization, seeing that how much best ROI we can get out of the battery. Can we extend the life of the battery also? It's very much doable. There are a number of things technologically that are possible, but then time, effort, and the evolution of the technology determines all these. So with our analytics, what we do currently is the demand forecast for swapping outlets, where you require more battery, where you should send your batteries, where you should focus on your logistics, etc. Inventory control, finding out the behaviors of the drivers, and accordingly generate the reports for the operators. So these are for their performance for the vehicles, performance of the batteries, performance of the drivers, and built onto that, onto this technical layer, we have this administrative layer, or we can call it as a business layer, which talks about grievances, maintenance, billing transactions, and business performances, which results into issuing some advisories that we do as an option, combining this whole analytics around the technology plus the administration part of it, and see that what are the what should be the future scale for an operator. What kind of batteries he should select, what kind of vehicles he should select, how should he should expand his network. And so far, if we have to say, we have tested it with this platform on this standard available architecture. We have tested about 12 OEMs, working with about 5 operators in 6 states. And so far, now we have about 510 million data points, and we see that with ourselves to give a good confidence to all the people who have joined on to this webinar. I would say that our data collection was very slow till for last 1.5 years, and we are seeing that our traction in the market for EVs is growing now very rapidly. And what we could collect in 1.5 years time, these numbers doubled in about last couple of months. And this is definitely a proof that there is a good traction, good demand in the EVs and batteries. A number of charging ports are increasing, numbers of vehicles are increasing. Though I see that still there is huge scope of picking up rapidly into the market. These are some snapshots from our pilot projects on our two-wheelers and three-wheelers, which are there in different parts of the country. And we have been learning that a lot through the data that we have been capturing from all different parts. We generate all these reports as a snapshot that you can see here. And if we have to kind of summarize, I think what Niti Aayog had also been talking about, DHI had also been talking about, and I'm sure that people like eBike Go and other operators are wanting to see the swapping or the electric vehicles happening at the least cost possible, where we could see that battery swapping are there at all convenient locations for the masses to have an access. And but all of this at the same time happening in a very standardized way, such that we are not dealing with the problems that at this point in time we cannot or could not envisage. So if battery is separated from the vehicle, we see clear improvement in the OPEX, lower TCO, good ROIs, etc. And to summarize on the benefits, the most important being for any operator, it's being eliminating long charging times. So we do not have the what we call as the dead times for the turnaround period of the vehicles. It has to be very much similar to ICE vehicles that we have been using. Eliminating the elaborate public charging infrastructure, and at the same time improving the infrastructure utilization that we create in terms of swapping as well. And the two other important parts that swapping bring is one being the enhancing the battery life, where charging and discharging and control. Discharging probably we cannot do much, but charging we can have in a much controlled environment. And at the same time, the data that we have from that we can capture and retain the history of it can help us do a lot around the batteries for enhancing the life of the battery packs. And lastly, on the grid load management, where whenever we talk about the vehicles, the EVs, the very big concern that comes from the number of organizations, ministry and discoms is that how would we manage the grid loads. Just to mention it here, that if we have kind of the infrastructure for swapping, where we know that where are the swapping stations, what are our peak demand times, and what are the times that the load or the TOD metering that is happening, and if we can have the correlation happening at the background, that probably would be able to solve not only the fears that we have with discoms, but probably can also provide as a good solution for the grid management, for balancing the grid. So that is some work that we have also started to do in that direction, and I see that swapping should be the way forward, and we would be seeing swapping happening among the commercial vehicles very, very soon. And that is all for my presentation at this point in time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Prabjot. Sorry for rushing you, but we have overspent 7 minutes above our time. But I think our participants are still very patient, and pretty much all of them are still sticking through. So I have like some very top questions, and maybe I would encourage Kedar, you also asking question to Prabjot. So my top question to both of you is. See, I think Kedar has brought a very important point that once he enters into any city, any new city, e-bike go or other fleet operator enters, and if he's really looking upon swapping as a solution for his fleet pan India, then there has to be someone who assures him that, okay, you enter into this city. Let's say Kedar is able to give him a confidence that, okay, I will have 1,000 vehicles in 3 months' time in this city. And now you hook up this many chargers, 5 kilometer per square kilometer area, and the city is, let's say, 250 square kilometer wide. So 50 kind of a swapping stations would be kind of needed for anyone to set up and provide that kind of an assurance, to provide that kind of a swapping quality. So I think it then is it a question. So one, it is definitely a question of scale, right? To really have a reliable service and ecosystem of swapping, it is a matter of scale and investment that some provider with those many batteries and charging ecosystem has to really set up its operations in this new city where Kedar and eBiko wants to set up its operation, right? So how are we solving this problem, Prabjot? Because I think this is where like there is a disconnect. And second, of course, is the technology and the reliability challenge, which kind of Umesh brought about that, which relates to the standardization. So one question to you, Prabjot, is kind of if you can confirm that the points that Umesh was raising as a concern from swapping side and the connector heat and other things, are they already being taken care of and technologically it's being solved? And now it's matter of only a right standard being adopted by the industry. So that's one aspect on the technology and reliability of swapping as a solution. And second, I think, is the operational viability at a city level, which is what Kedar is raising, which we need to solve. So, Prabjot, your thoughts, and then Kedar, your comments.
Yeah, Rahul, maybe the first question first. So you asked about Kedar's concern on the city level implementation of the charging infrastructure. If they have to go and see that where do we swap, I think that is anyways a challenge. It's a big challenge, and with lack of standardization that we do not have even now in place by, I mean, made as an India standard. This what I talked was is broadly an industry standard done by a few of the industries coming together, but fairly soon we'll be taking it to BIS as well for standardizing it. But as far as that is concerned, the infrastructure still remains a big challenge. So how many people would be there who would be adopting that standard and putting up in places at different places still remains unanswered. I won't say that unanswered completely, because there are people who are talking about it. There are people who have their own petrol stations. There are those who are wanting to become the energy operators. They can pick up the standard, very much put in the infrastructure into the place so that whosoever wants to use that infrastructure, this infrastructure is available. So we are in talks with a couple of PSUs who are wanting to build this infrastructure. And in fact, in one of the pilot pictures that I had shown, it was BPCL who has taken this initiative in putting up this infrastructure in a couple of cities. And these are Kochi and Lucknow. They're starting their pilot operations and they have made those announcements as well. And then there are a couple of other PSUs as well, which are actually looking at setting up this infrastructure. And apart from the PSUs, I think that energy as a service, or this whole new business that we were talking about as an energy operation, like eBike Go is doing on the vehicle side, the energy operators there for the energy operators alone to provide it as a service makes a very good business case. So we have worked together with a couple of players for figuring out that what it does to make sense, I mean, how it makes sense to do business around the energy operation. So I think that if we can have good tie-ups with the energy operation and people like eBike Go, there'll be a good use case and there would be good combination. Of course, it will take some time to come. So that was on the first question, Rahul. I hope I have addressed that. The second is on the technology and reliability from the standardization point of view, or where we stand. I think I already mentioned during my presentation that we have started in India we delayed this work like anything in our country. And electric vehicles, if we see, makes a very good sense from OPEX point of view, affordability, and all those things that we can talk about. But the lack of technology and the right development that we have missed, we have anyways missed that bus, but we have to be very fast in catching it up. And there is no reason that we cannot do that. We have good engineers in our country, we have good software people in the country. That's why I was saying that at this point in time, because we are starting late, it is that whosoever can play at its strength, we need to leverage that and create the whole ecosystem which can be beneficial to everyone. And that's where I see that lots of improvements, lots of products that are coming up now, which we were not seeing a year back. We are seeing a lot of improvements happening on all different segments, be it vehicles, batteries, chargers, then number of new companies that we are hearing every day, number of new technologies that we are hearing every day. Of course, we are starting now, but yes, there is good scope and there's good standardization also being talked about around all these subsystems. Rahul?
Great. Thank you, Prabjot.
Thanks, Prabjot. I think, Rahul, thanks for asking that question. I think, that is certainly a big concern, and thanks, Prabjot, for answering that question.
Thank you, Kedar.
Kedar, what question comes to you, not only for Prabjot, but for the overall ecosystem to really make you adopt or look upon battery swapping as a solution? So whatever Prabjot has presented, do you think it takes care of the concerns you brought in first place, or you still believe there are questions and areas which still needs right engineering solution and also financial solution? So I think these are the two crux of solving this problem: engineering and financial solution.
Correct. Yes. So what Prabjot mentioned does take care of a large, array of technical issues. So, like what she mentioned, charging them in the controlled environment will increase the battery life. That is fantastic. So one question that typically comes to my mind, and I'm purely thinking from as a fleet operator business person here, is that actually if the battery swapping business is owning batteries, then that advantage goes to them. Obviously, they will be able to pass it on to us, but how can we see a direct advantage? One thing is quick charge time. That is single biggest advantage. The single biggest reason I'm looking at, I would be interested in a battery swapping solution. And as some other things Umesh also touched upon, vehicle abuse and battery abuse is a real concern. We have had some batteries stolen, and we don't know. Some of those batteries had like a BMS system that was supposed to protect the batteries to some extent. But I think there is people are often more innovative. The thieves are often more innovative than we give them credit for. So it will be a cat and mouse race for some time, and obviously we won't be able to eliminate all possibilities of stealing the batteries. But then the two larger questions are the scaling and standardization. That they are more important from rolling this solution out for everyone point of view. And I'm just curious, Prabjot, business or entity like yours, are you guys exploring franchises or any? I mean, I will be happy to have more conversation with you and see how can we participate. And we all, our primary objective is to put the two-wheelers out there and keep them running as much as possible. So we are not married to any particular battery chemistry or battery, so we can be flexible if the the solution provider is giving us what we want.
Yes, for sure, Kedar. I mean, the solution anyways, I mean, probably from business side of view, we provide it for everyone. That's the bread and butter that we have for as far as this company is concerned. But to address it globally in the best interest of our audience, when we see that, then what do we get out of this solution when we have a good solution on the energy operator side? There are a couple of things. One, that if they can give you promised range and the promised performance as the user. So you as a user, if you know that I'm going to this particular operator, I'm going to get this promised range or performance from the battery, and you are also transparently able to see that what is operator giving you, what you are getting. So this is a clear-cut advantage that you get out of the standardization and such solutions that we have. And then on if you can figure out that, yeah, what is the right time you need to actually get rid of that battery, or can we figure out that this is safe to be used, or you should not be using these batteries, not from the theft from point of view, but I'm saying more from the safety of the person or the safety of the driver point of view. So these are clear-cut advantages that the system can bring in to operators or the drivers that you work with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. So again, I think thank you very much. I think this was a great discussion. I definitely see that plot has moved from the time where we kind of developed this ecosystem, Prabjot. I really hope that, as Kedar said, that bringing scale to this segment. And Umesh ji was kind of very supportive in and encouraging to believe that in less than 2 years, he expects that the technology and scale would be to the level that all two-wheeler fleet operational commercial operations would really find value to shift 100% to electric. So I think with that positive note, we end this session today. Prabjot has also said that stakeholders, good engineers, and other people needs to really come together. I think between Prabjot's platform from Esmito and what Kedar and e-bike Go operator is looking, I think is actually a infra and service provider company who will host the capex of the battery and provide and de-risk the operations. So I think there's an opportunity for such operators. BPCL, NTPC, and other players have started playing that role, and more needs to go to really take it to a scale level. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend coming soon. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Prabjot,
you.
and thank you, Kedar and Umeshi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.